Yo, what's going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped back from the OPTC video, and in today's video, we're doing another PvP breakdown for the Psy team. And in today's video, we're going to be putting all the characters on a tier list, breaking down the teams for you guys, and giving you some options when you are using Psy in PvP. Now, when I think of Psy and PvP, I think of it as the epitome of the game mode, because the team can go so right, and it can go so wrong. In PvP, it is a game built up around RNG, and your job is to reduce the amount of RNG drastically to the point where you can either guarantee yourself a win or increase the chance and increase the odds of winning. Well, with Psy, if things go right, it goes well, and when things go wrong, it goes terribly wrong. Whenever I verse Psy, things always seem to go right for the opponent, but when I use Psy, things always seem to go very, very wrong for me. But in today's video, like I said, we're going to talk about the team against INT, and we're going to break down another team that a lot of people like to use when it comes to Psy for basically everything else. Talk about some options for the team, some bench options, and some characters that you want to be careful of when you are using the Psy team, as well as breaking down what these characters actually do and showcasing some fights too. As these videos have gone, we've been obviously versing our counterparts for the majority of them, but with Psy and INT being interchangeable, where Psy is good against INT in some situations and INT is very good against Psy in some situations, this particular video and the INT one is going to be a little bit different to the other three that you guys have seen. But nevertheless, if you enjoyed the video, belt the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And with that said, let's dive into the tier list and take a look at the Psy team in Rumble. As always, huge shout out to the database for the images provided and the tier list maker. I'll leave a link to both those in the description below if you guys want to go check out the tier list. Link should be down there. Hopefully it works. I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to this sort of stuff. But this is the note category. These characters are... they're not bad characters. Like, there are some really good characters here, like Marco and Bo. Like, they're sort of top row, and some other characters that are spread out through here. This tier doesn't mean they're bad. It just means if we're talking for the mono Psy team, purely talking about Psy, or the other team that I'm talking about in this video, these particular characters don't really find a place. However, you can build some really funky stuff with, like, fighters. You can do, like, Marco, Luffy, Katakuri, Sanji. Like, there's stuff that you guys can do for defense teams. But remember, in today's video, we are focusing on attack. So these characters here, if you're building out a Psy team, majority of the time, you're just not going to use them. They're not built for Psy. They're built for other places like slashers, or shooters, or fighters. Those types of tiers. The next sort of tier we're going to go up to is Nami. The Nami tier. It's the bug tier. Nami gets her own tier because, in theory, she should work exceptionally well for free spirits, but fortunately, she doesn't, because she's still bugged. She doesn't do fixed damage. She's meant to do fixed damage. Her wording is exactly the same as Soro's, but we still don't have that. Moving up here, we go to the defense options. There's a couple of options that I've put on here that are very, very good, because, like I said, you can build out some defensive teams. You can use stuff like, the fighting pirates, they're just so good for any defense team, because they just don't die. You can do some cerebral shenanigans, so I want to represent that with, Crocus. You can do some fighter shenanigans with these, like, Sunbell unit here. This Luffy is exceptional on a defensive team. He's very, very tanky. You can stick him in the middle. Shirahoshi, obviously, with her healing capabilities, and Struzan is a very good defensive PvP character as well. So, if you're building out side defense teams, these characters can work exceptionally well. They can work in offensive lineups, but they do tend to sort of drop off a little bit because they make the fight go a little bit too slow. Moving up now, we have your options. Now, these characters are options for your teams, whether they be bench options, whether they be other frontline options. These particular characters can see some play. Kolgara and Nolan just got an upgrade with their level limit break. They're a little bit better, and honestly, I'm going to bring them up into, totally forgot they got a buff, and they now, they're really good against INT now. So we're going to bring them up into, counter options. We're going to talk about that in a second. Bonnie can be really good at versing Driven Powerhouse, and Driven Powerhouse is very eccentric in the INT build. So she's definitely an option, mainly for the bench, but I've just found that, like, these types of characters, if they're not good in the front lines, then you can't really bank on them at the back end. Wyvern and Roger is a really good bench option. If you guys want to, like, just have a legend on the bench, Wyvern and Roger can come in and just absolutely change a fight. Everyone knows how good they are. They're the best PvP character in the game. I can't not have them on this list because they're so damn good. Luffy, Sanji, they're a real back-end option. Like, if you guys are struggling with characters for the team, they're a rainbow booster, so you can use them. Shanks is very good defensively. He can do a lot in the last sort of 50 seconds of the fight. I don't know if I have V1 Shanks. I might have glossed over V1 Shanks here. Yeah, V1 Shanks I forgot to put on this tier list, but he's another option as well for the bench. But, like, Bonnie's just better. Bon Clay, people like Bon Clay. I don't. I haven't really given him a chance, to be honest, though. And this Sanji is a pretty good nuker at the back end of a fight, so there's definitely options in those characters there. Next, we go up to the counter options. I haven't put this as, like, counter killers, because, like I said, INT can beat Psy just as well as Psy can beat INT. But Boa, Germa, and Kolgara Nolan at level limit break 5, or 4, are very good options when it comes to versing INT. Boa has some really, really good fixed damage capability. She's also really good at nerfing INT. So is Germa. Germa has the capabilities of reducing INT's like speed and stuff like that, which is great. And then Colgara and Nolan do a lot of damage to the INT class as well. The INT type as well. So these particular characters can see play there. Moving up now, we've got the amazing characters. I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak peek of the top there. These characters are amazing. Now, Wano Law stays winning. Now, the reason Wano Law is not a god is because there are INT characters that aren't driven powerhouse. But Law just finds a way on the side team all the time, and his aid's like fine wine. When this gets a 6+ or level limit break, it's going to be absolutely curtains for driven powerhouse, and it's the reason that Sai has hung around so long. Without Wano Law, I do believe that they would struggle quite a lot, but nevertheless, they do work exceptionally well. And in Grand Party, thanks to this man right here, Sai has always been a force. Roger has carried Sai through Grand Party since day one, because he's such a good leader, he's got such a good burst, and there's a lot of slasher characters that are around, namely stuff like Law and Odin and Roger himself, that in Grand Party, they can do some really, really annoying things. They can do some really great things. But they can also be really, really annoying whether you're using them or not. And all the first PvP rare recruit still holds his own. First PvP legend still holds his own on the side team. His specials popping off so quickly is so good. You will see him on one of these teams because of the rise of Kuzan as well. Very, very good unit. If you have him, be very happy. The Straw Hat Crew V1, they're also a great unit. Sai don't have a lot of the Straw Hat characters like in their lineups. So using this character is very, very handy because you don't have to worry about the clash of the other 10 units. Smoothie is a fantastic bench option. Gaban is a fantastic bench option too. Ideally, like, Gaban's probably more of an option than he is actually amazing now that I'm thinking about it. He'd be a top-end option though. But Smoothie, she's definitely like my first go-to bench unit now. I used to not be too hot on her, but like at the back end, her giving the CD reduction is actually really good. And she does have a lot of damage output and some nice healing. I think I forgot like Kinemon Dendro on this tier list too. Like they're actually another option as well. Give me one sec. Alright, so that was a lot more characters that I forgot that I totally glanced over. So, Jinbei, great for fighter teams. Free Spirits with Frankie Tanky, they are there. Shirahoshi Manchuri V2, totally forgot about them too. Great for cerebral teams. Terrific options. I put Shanks on the tier list there. I can't believe I forgot a Shanks. I forgot 2 Shankses actually. I'm very disappointed in myself. But Shanks Crew and Kinemon Dendro, 2 characters I completely glossed over too. If you are building out like a Free Spirit team, Kinemon Dendro are very, very good. I find them better on defensive options, but they're still great if you are building out like a Free Spirit-centric build, because Sai is littered with Free Spirit characters. Plus, they're a slasher character too, which Roger can boost as well. Plus, you've got Shanks Crew. Now, Shanks Crew, honestly, just go on any team and they make the team amazing. It's baffling what this character can do. They just give the team level 10 defense up after they use their special, and they do a 25% HP cut, and they give attack buff, and then they give more defense with their passive. It's kind of nuts what this character can do, and if you need like a bulky unit on a team, you just slap Shanks Crew there, even if he has no synergy with the rest of the team, and he works like an absolute charm. As for the gods of Sai, this is basically the ones that I tend to use a lot. Odin and Yamato combination is the crux of the beneficial part of Sai and the downfall at the same time. If you get these 2 RNG units popping off like crazy, you just win the fight, and they can beat any team in the game. You get Yamato half-statting every single character, and then Odin comes in and just decimates the whole team. It's curtains. It's actually curtains. And it's wild to see what they can actually do. In Grand Party, this combination is exceptional. It's incredibly scary, and it does absolutely incredible things to absolutely just tear through your lineup. However, you have to get that to pop off. But nevertheless, they're still so good on the team regardless, and I would highly recommend maxing them out if you are building Sai teams. Rebecca Toy Soldier, the best Sai PvP rare recruit in the game. One of the best PvP rare recruits in the entire game. Period. And then Kuzan with his level limit break plus and his 6+ is so good at versing INT, but the 4k fixed damage against any other team is so reliable and is so goddamn powerful. Plus his CD reduction is great. He's a fantastic character at taking on INT and a fantastic character across the board when you are versing any other PvP team. So this is basically the crux of the tier list. Anything under this is just like nope. So if you guys want to take a screenshot of this, if you guys want to save this in if you are building Sai, let's take a look at some teams now and let's see how the Sai team operates. Alright, so we're going to have some fights on the side for you guys, and I'm going to do my best to try and, like, tee them up with the team that we're talking about. But the first team we're going to talk about is the PSY Free Spirit team with Straw Hat Crew V2. Now, this particular team is the one that most people tend to go for, because that way you can round out a nice solid bench if you have Rebecca Toy Soldier, and you can sort of build out your bench and have an 8-man team rocking. Plus, you have the RNG capabilities of Straw Hat Crew VT2 going and giving everyone haste. Now, obviously, this isn't like a mono Sai team, but it can do very, very well up against stuff like INT, and it does have a lot of RNG behind it to verse a bunch of other teams as well. So as you can see, we're coming up against the Cerebral INT team. The Cerebral INT team is another very, very annoying build that you will see a lot on defense. They use stuff like Reiju, Puddings, Choppers, all that sort of stuff. As you can see, with the haste ability that Straw Hat Crew provides, it brings all your other characters forward, and then that way you can get all your specials off and just break down units and break down teams in the very, very early aspects of the fight. But stereotypically, when you are coming up against INT builds, you'll see stuff like Apu, you'll still see stuff like your Rogue. They're characters that you want to be very, very careful of. You'll see stuff like Yamato, Moria, Kid, Killer, the Giant, Smoker. Those are the stereotypical, like, attacking builds that you'll see, but when you are defending, or when you are versing defensive builds, most of the time you will see the Cerebral builds. Stuff like I said, like Chopper, stuff like Pudding, stuff like Reiju, stuff like Orms. Those two particular characters can be a little bit annoying, but this particular team does very, very well against them. But stereotypically, you just want to have as much attacking prowess when you are going up against them. And that's where Yamato and Odin come into play. That combination that I mentioned earlier in the tier list part of them actually halving stats is so good not only for themselves, but also for Straw Hat Crew V2. Straw Hat Crew V2 has very, very good options in doing a lot of damage and can actually take them down quite nicely and clutch yourself some wins very easily against this very defensive build. Alright, so up against a more driven-centric build now, you've got stuff like Kaido, Top Music is another real, like, powerhouse force. Then you've also got stuff like Reiju to sort of stall out fights as well. So, when you see these types of teams, just be mindful, again, like, Sai, you are sort of flipping the coin when you ever are using the team, but, again, you want to try and reduce the amount of RNG that you possibly can. That's where Wano Law comes into play. If you see Powerhouse, if you see Driven, you're going to be reducing their special charge drastically by level 6, and you're going to increase your own by level 6, which is very, very good. Other teams that you can come up against when running this team is stuff like Quick. Quick is also littered with driven characters like Kanjuros and like Porkamis, Fuji, Orochi, Kainu. The amount of Quick characters that are like driven centric, and we touched on that in the Quick video, makes this particular build work exceptionally well as well. Mainly because, again, Wano Law is so good at nerfing them. You're allowed to use your specials incredibly early. You have the haste ability of Straw Hat Crew, so you can bring your characters forward, and that way you can do a lot of damage output. The downside to this particular team is if you're not killing or breaking some pieces of the puzzle in the first round of your specials, it's very detrimental because 99% of the time, the tankiness that this team actually has can fall and can basically break apart by the time you get to the back end of the fight. But the upside to this team, compared to the next team you guys are going to see, is you can run a nice established bench. Now, Smoothie is usually one of my go-tos, just to keep the Psy-centric build going, and then I like to use just two characters that have synergy with themselves. Stuff like Pell and Dalton, stuff like Blue Gem and Porkamy, stuff like the Brogy and Dory. You can even use stuff like King. King's a fantastic back-end unit. You can even use stuff like Smoker as well. Those characters are very, very good at actually breaking down teams as well. So, as you guys see here, like, you can do some fun stuff against INT, but just be mindful if you see stuff like Apu, if you still see stuff like your Rogue, they are going to be nerfing you very, very heavily. Konus and Orm are two other big culprits as well. So when you are versing INT teams, just be very, very careful and just sort of suss out what the enemy's using that could break apart your team before committing to it, because if you're not using Wano Law, like, you're going to be struggling a little bit against these types of builds, as you don't really give yourself an upper hand when taking them down. That extra CD reduction just means that you're going to be getting your special off very early and then getting it once again to sort of do as much damage to the opponent as possible. And as you can see, we broke apart the pieces of their puzzle without actually being too detrimental. Now, this team wasn't exactly the be-all or end-all, but it was still a very, like, synergetic build for the INT team with a lot of powerhouse, with a lot of driven characters on it. And even still, when you are versing stuff like challenge teams with your Rogue and Brogy, Dory, all those types of characters, this particular team can still get the job done. However, like I said at the very beginning, and I'm going to say it 100 more times throughout this particular video, Psy have the RNG factor that they need to actually clutch out these types of wins. It's a little bit of a downfall to the team, but it's also a big positive of the team to actually get it done. And remember, with these fights, you can just try them over and over and over again until you get that good RNG and sort of showcase what this particular team can do. As you can see, we have the Rebecca Toy Soldier go off very, very early there. We're getting a lot of defensive capabilities, reductions with that unit. Now we have all our specials ready to go. We got bad RNG there because ideally you want Odin to go after Yamato after you have those half stats down. Now that Yamato's going to go, we're going to half stats everyone that we can. Yamato hitting 2 units with that She half stance is also a key crux to this team as well. It allows you to do a lot of damage, and as you can see, the Straw Hat Crew can come in and just clean up on those other half stat units. However, Yamato has the ability to just half stat 1 unit and then just hit 2 other characters, and then Odin can just completely miss. So, whilst you can see very good showcasings of what you saw right there, you can also see some really bad showcasings where, like, Yamato and Odin just do absolutely nothing for the team, and then you're just in a really, really bad spot, and everything just falls to shit. So, like I said, whilst we're showcasing a lot of the good that the side can do, I do want to preface that there's a lot of bad that the side can do too, and it means that you could just be absolutely throwing your phone against the wall because of all this stupid RNG. Nevertheless, though, in Grand Party, these particular characters work exceptionally well. And with the next team that you guys are going to see, or even this particular team, you can easily chuck Roger on the bench, or you could run Roger in this particular slot right here over Rebecca Toy Soldier, and that way you could bring Rebecca Toy Soldier on the bench, run this kind of 5-man team, and then use Roger as your GP leader. It's a very good GP team, so that way you guys can build out like whatever the rule set sort of like regarding. But Roger, he just makes Psy so viable in that particular game mode because he is the best GP leader, and that's what put him so high on the list. I still use him on my Free Spirit team as well. He's a very good unit with the nerfing capabilities he has and stuff like that, and he's fixed damage as well. But Psy could have a better option in Kuzan now. That unless you're using him in Grand Party, you're not going to be really using him at all, really. But as you can see, even with really good RNG for this particular team, we still get taken all the way down to the 15-second fight. We are versing the challenge team, so you're never going to fight these types of teams, but Psy still does need a lot of things to go their way to be very, very powerful. Alright, so moving on to the next team build, it's kind of the 6-man squad, and it does use a lot of legends in the front. Now, with Enel, Kuzan, and Yamato, you can build out a nice strikery-centric build, and this particular build does work exceptionally well. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't really give you too many bench options, but I do find that when you are versing ints, and int-driven or powerhouse in particular, having lore on the team is like a must, and not using lore can be an absolute detriment to your success rate, because you need to just like increase your special charge. And as you can see, like, Enel is ready to go in the first 15 seconds, which is just absolutely nuts. He gives a lot of defense and speed, which can then bolster your attacking prowess, because stuff like Odin and Yamato are going to go. Now, as you guys are going to see here, we're going to get some really good RNG. We're going to absolutely decimate fucking Yamato and Moria. That's exactly what you want to see when you do have the side team going like crazy, having all the opponent's units together, and then you can sort of just go. And that's the upside of having lore. You have lore, so you have your specials ready to go, and the enemy hasn't had enough time to move their pieces around. That's a big part of RNG, the placement of characters and where they move when they are attacking because of their attacking patterns and your stat levels, your investment, and all that kind of stuff. And that's why lore is so good, because not only do they not pop their specials off so fast, but you are actually having your specials popping off incredibly quickly to hit them whilst they're all together at the start of the fight. So this team works exceptionally well against int. I do like this particular team a little bit more because you have Kuzan with the nerfing as well as lore, and you can do some really, really cool stuff there. However, once you lose 2 pieces of your puzzle, it's basically curtains, because you don't have an established bench here. I like to use Rebecca Toy Soldier on the bench, and that way you can have them come in. They have a really good passive, they have a really good special, and they work exceptionally well. When you're not bursting when you're not versing int, you can take lore off, and you could use maybe another PP rare recruit like Strusen for more tankiness. You could bring Rebecca Toy Soldier into the front and then just build out like a crazy bench like King, Smoker, Pell, Dalton, all those units. But as for these 5 legends, these are my 5 go-to legends when it comes to Psy. And because you're versing int-driven most of the time when it comes to these types of builds, you can come up against some of these crazy like hybrid combinations as well with stuff like Blue Jam and Porkamy, Kanjuro, Orochi, all those driven characters that kind of just like all buff that driven class rather than the actual color of int. And this particular team can work exceptionally well against Dex as well. But the downside is we are still running a lot of Free Spirit, namely with like half our team's Free Spirit, so you got to be careful of stuff like Dofi. But if you do see like 5-man driven builds, you can do some really, really cool stuff against them with this particular team. Again, breaking the pieces of the puzzle early is the way this team operates. And if you are coming up against these 5-man Dex builds, or even some of those like other builds that we were talking about over here with like these quick teams, you can definitely do some really, really cool stuff with this particular team build as well. So it works incredibly nicely at sort of tearing through 5-man teams, or tearing through teams that are driven and powerhouse centric, as I've been rambling on this entire time. So as you can see, With this fight, we managed to take out Blue Gem incredibly early. The thing with Driven and Powerhouse, if you are running it like across like Quick and Int, is some characters aren't buffing everyone. Like Yamato's not buffing the Quick characters. Neither is Moria, but their half stack capabilities means it's so powerful. Kuzen comes in, he hits for 2,800 against Int characters, but 4,000 against those Quick characters. So you can do a lot of damage there. And Enel just pops his special off over and over and over and over again. If I was the enemy, I would be banging my head against the wall, because you're just seeing Enel come in and just do so much damage over and over and over again. With this particular team, though, you do want to try and protect your big guns of Odin and Yamato. However, Kuzen is another very, very good option for this team. He's very, very powerful. And remember, Odin is buffing free spirits as well as Psy characters. So Kuzen needs to be protected a little bit more than what Odin does. But depending on what your investment, Odin and Yamato are going to be your big damage dealers. So you do want them to be like, coming in fairly quickly and actually doing a lot of damage. Another upside to Odin is he can action bind. But one thing you guys have to be careful of is special bind. Now, special binding Yamato is a key way that Int gets around the Odin-Yamato combination. So just be mindful if you're coming up against stuff like Smoker, if you're coming up against something like Dory, that special bind could be the absolute downfall for you. Like the other side team, this one can actually do very, very well against the challenge fight. This is against Apu, and Apu fight has a lot of very, very annoying characters on it as well. But whilst we have a look at this particular fight, let's take a look at some characters that you want to be careful of. Let's take a look at some bench options as well. Now, as I mentioned, you have Apu. He's an absolute demon at decimating through Psy. However, you can actually basically kill him before he has a chance to go off. And that's where it comes back to that RNG aspect of Odin and Yamato that we spoke about earlier. But Apu, Yorogue, Konus, these types of characters are ones you want to be careful of. Smoker and his special binding, Dory special binding, those types of special binding characters can be exceptionally powerful at just reducing the ability to get the Yamato special off, so be very careful of that. Kuzen's also a culprit that can be special bind, and so can Law. You've got Dofi, he's a nerfer of Free Spirit characters, so if you are doing that Free Spirit team, you've got to be really careful of Dofi. Defense down is very annoying. And then Strength. Strength is actually a pretty annoying team to fight when you are using Psy. Namely stuff like Kid and King, Who's Who, Dofi, they can just tear through your team, and it's very, very annoying. So be careful if you do use this team against Strength, because Strength can kind of go crazy. Now, I got a lot of good RNG with this fight, that's why I wanted to showcase it, but like, we're at like the 60-second mark, and it's 3 versus 8. But then the rest of this fight just takes forever. As for your bench options, you've got Smoothie's my go-to. Rebecca Toy Soldier is a great bench option for this particular team, as you can see here. Gaban can work great. And then you got Roger and Whitebeard. If you have a legend spot and you're like, what legend should I put on the team? Just chuck Roger Whitebeard on the bench. Just do it. They're so good at coming in and just decimating pieces of the puzzle. Especially, like, they have that kid effect. If they come in and they have a special, they'll just kill 2 units. It's guaranteed. On top of that, they actually boost Psy as well, which is kind of nice. Next, you've got just the all-round good bench unit. I put Smoker here as an example, but you have King, you have Pell, you have any of the Giants, you have Blue Jam. Like, these characters just work exceptionally well to just come in and sort of just decimate at the back end when you just need some damage output. But that's going to wrap up the video on the Psy team. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to go down there, belt the like button for me, hit the subscribe button, do all that good stuff. Let me know your favorite Psy team in the comment section as well. Most importantly, though, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world, make sure to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.